And I have the privilege this morning of introducing you to Scott Benesiinaabandan. Scott is an Anishinabe intermedia artist who works primarily in photography, printmaking, and video. He's recently completed international residencies at Parramatta Artist Studios in Australia, Context Gallery in Derry, north of Ireland, and was awarded the University of Lethbridge Royal Institute of Technology iAIR residency in 2013, along with international collaborative projects in both the U.K. and in Ireland. He's currently completing his MFA at Concordia University. He's been awarded multiple grants from the Canada Council for the Arts, Manitoba Arts Council, and the Winnipeg Arts Council as well. There's a list on his CV about the exhibitions, group exhibitions that he's had in the past, but I thought I'll skip those and just talk about all the ones he's in right now. He's currently in a group exhibition at the Carleton University Art Gallery, the Koffler Gallery in Toronto, and in the RMG exhibition in Aabowin that's in the Far Gallery. And we're so privileged to have him as part of that exhibition that Danielle Printup curated for us. So please join me in welcoming Scott.
So I'm just going to set up my digital technology timer. Okay. Abuju, Benesiinaabandan, Maing Gandodem. Laxul Donji, Montreal Donji. My name is Scott. I'm originally from Laxul First Nations. I currently reside for the last almost 6 years in Montreal. Initially, I was going to, thank you, Mohammed, for when you said about people who do not respond to emails for 3 weeks. I thought you were talking to me, so I went and responded to emails, and I apologize to Linda for my tardiness. I'm not the easiest one to get in touch with. So when I was considering what to talk about for this presentation, this is the piece that's in Aabowin next door, and so I was going to do a chronological. So, sorry, how does this work again? I just want to see. It's just the, sorry. Oh, here we go, okay. So I just put my website up just because some of the references I might make are not in the slideshow, and maybe you can they're probably online, so. I was going to start in a kind of chronological way with Psychic History Home Montreal. But as I sort of started thinking about it and sort of considering what is most relevant to me in terms of digital technology and sort of image and art making practice, I thought that it was difficult. I had to go back, that's 5 years, which is forever in sort of an art making years, to like consider what was I thinking when I was making these pieces. And these ideas sort of continued to fluoresce and grow different branches on that tree, and I thought it would be easier to start further down and further closer to what I'm doing right now. And I think one of the easiest project that I can talk about what the impact on an individual artist in terms of a digital technology is my interface and my sort of use of VR as a digital technology. So the project that I'll talk most about is Blueberry Pie Under a Martian Sky. And this is a VR piece that was commissioned through a consortium of Initiative for Indigenous Futures, TIFF, Imaginative Festival, and Pinguac. And this was sort of commissioned for 2017, so last year's Imaginative Festival and TIFF Festival sort of premiered the 4 pieces. And it was a commission with myself, Post Commodity, Kent Monkman, and Dennis Goulet. And so I was commissioned through Initiative for Indigenous Futures, which is out of Concordia and co-directed with Jason Lewis and Skawanati Fragnito. And they're very important because I think they've been super supportive of me for the last almost 6 years since I've been in Montreal. The reason I am in Montreal is because 6 years ago, or almost 6 years ago, they brought me out for a year-long Canada Council New Media Creation residency. And this is sort of jumping back to these pieces that are there. These are the pieces that sort of initially came out of that residency. And so me being in this sort of residency space with these amazing technologically proficient people using technologies that I've never heard of, like processing, like Arduino, like a myriad of other sort of open source technologies, sort of exposed my practice to ways I can incorporate new technologies into that practice. And so, skip ahead 3 years, they approached me again and said, would you like to do this commission in a VR, in this VR world? And so the idea was to create 4 pieces that addressed to consider what Indigenous communities might look like 150 years into the future. And this was a response to the Canada 150 sort of problems that were posed, I guess, 2 years ago now. So I said, yeah, this is great. I have never worked in VR. I didn't really know much about VR, but I'm always interested in new technologies and ways I can use that into my practice in terms of the ideas that I'm concerned with. And so, Blueberry Pie Under a Martian Sky was a steep learning curve over the course of a year, but also allowed me to really get into and engage with spaces that I didn't really know how to do that as an artist before that. That includes like sort of looking at origin stories and traditional stories and sacred stories and those sacred spaces. And so I only have 2 of the slides from the piece here, but it's an immersive VR experience that draws on sort of the original stories that we have as Anishinabe people, and sort of reimagines that as a viewer as you go through the experience. And so using VR as that sort of interface with these old stories was this sort of revelation to me in terms of how I can be grounded in these histories in a very visceral and very embodied way, outside of just being like these sacred ceremonial stories. And so I think one of the impactful things of these technologies I had was it allowed me that interface with these histories and with these stories and with the language in a way that I wasn't even considering before I learned about VR and these digital technologies. And so that's one of the sort of impacts, the immediate impacts that like using these new digital technologies had as me on an artist. So project 2, so the whole project with the 4 pieces were called 2167, and it toured Canada and the States, and I think went to Berlin this spring, and I think it hit maybe like 40 different communities. And the beautiful thing about 2167, and this is the other amazing thing about what VR offers as an artist and art institutions, is accessibility. So all of these communities, all it took was to pack 4 headsets, Samsung Gear VR, into a backpack and fly into remote villages. And so this is probably my favorite photo I've ever taken of my art practice. What you're looking at here is, I started a project in Kingcome Inlet, which is a flying community in northern BC. And what we're seeing here is 2167 being shown in a big house. And what you're looking at in the background is Bo Dick's carvings, because he's from this community. And at the same time, tying in the contemporary sort of accessibility that these technologies allow individual artists and communities access to these artworks, but also the fact that, and I have to say this, is that I was thinking of this this morning is that Lawrence Paul, I'm not gonna butcher the name. I got it corrected this morning. Yakwe in 1992 did a piece called Inherent Rights, Vision Rights. And he did this through Banff New Media Center. And he did a VR piece in 1992. And so for me, that was sort of this time-traveling connection between, we think VR is like something very contemporary, but it comes in waves. And like one of the first waves that sort of didn't take hold, but it was still out there, was in 1992 with Lawrence Paul's piece. And so I think these technologies sort of connect not only communities in a lateral way, like now we can connect to all these sort of isolated communities and present these stories in the contemporary art pieces, but also connect on a sort of in a temporal way with previous artworks, you know? And so for me, this is like one of the sort of everything that I'm really considering and really find empowering about these technologies in one photo. These young generations were so engrossed in sort of being immersed in these worlds and these stories that we were telling in a way that I've never really seen. I've seen kids run through galleries, engaging with art, workshops, but when you see a kid put on a VR headset, it's something that really, really resonates with them, you know? And I think that there's a lot of potential there as art organizations, I think, and also as artists, as an art practice themselves. And so, so Blueberry Pie was sort of, and the ideas around engaging with the ideas of the sacred histories and sacred stories and notions of land and place and memory that showed up in Blueberry Pie Under Martian Sky started with earlier residencies like the residency I did with AppTech and OBX Labs in 2013. And even before that, these ideas started with a 3-month Parramatta residency, again supported by Canada Council in terms of ideas of indigeneity, where knowledge is located, and how Indigenous people access these things. And one of the things I'm really keen on is the fact that we're talking about contemporary digital technologies and how it can connect and expand our communities. But I always wanted to bring back that this is called a jisikan, and this is called a shaking tent ceremony. And this is a technology that we used a long time ago to connect our communities in the same way that we use the internet today. And so I think it's very interesting to present these old technologies of connection and knowledge making and world making in this new digital technology. So it's very important to know that these new technologies are not new totally, they're just a new iteration of a lot of other things that have gone on before. So I love this actually piece in this because it is a reminder to me that Indigenous people have always used these technologies to strengthen the communities and to and then the Teapot was always a reminder to, like, despite all this technology, and sometimes it gets isolating and it can be sort of distracting and it can feel isolating, but there's always these human connections that these digital technologies, as an artist and as an individual within a community, have, and like some of that humanity is always sort of found within the code. And sort of I was struggling with how to like phrase that intangible thing that I was talking about, and what appeals to me about using these digital technologies. And I was looking at Lawrence Paul's work and an essay written by Jackson Two Bears, and he had this beautiful quote that I just wanted to just present to you guys that sort of summarizes something resonates with me. So it goes, "Here the story is not written on the land, but instead in ones and zeros, in the liquid architecture of a computer-generated environment, a sacred space populated by spirit simulations that inhabit the digital code." And that was from Conversations with Spirits inside the inside the simulation of a Coast Salish longhouse, and that book is from Code Drift. And that really kind of resonated with me, and there's a lot of great thinkers that are doing work around the interaction of Indigenous people and Indigenous contemporary art with new contemporary digital technologies, and he's one of those sort of writers that are doing these works. So, I guess I'll talk about this one too. So after Blueberry Pie was done, I got invited by Trinity Square Video to do an off-site VR piece. And so it's another great thing about these digital technologies, that you don't have to be in the same city to work with tech teams and production companies to make these artworks. You know, you can do these on Skype, you can do these on sharing technologies like Trello or Slack or whatever those technologies are. And it's like very empowering. You don't need to spend tons of time away from home to make these works. And so this piece was a piece that I made up in our territory of Lac Seul. And so it was just a consideration of the monument when you go home. And so it wasn't sort of a counter to the work that I've been doing around sort of colonial monuments. And again, it was more about the accessibility of the technology and how that technology can be shared with the community. So. So I got like a couple minutes left here. The last thing I actually want to do, so this is like, I was in Contact Festival this year in Toronto. And there's lots that could be said about the work that was created there, but down to the last couple minutes. But I really wanted to share this one because this is the most recent one. I think I submitted it to them 2 weeks ago. And so Decoy Mag is a magazine out of Vancouver. And they have this amazing, and they invited me to do this sort of, they have this subsection of their magazine called BCC. And it's a subscription-based digital art forum. And the purpose of it is that they invite one artist every month to do a unique and exclusive artwork for them and for their subscriber base. And so, and then the artist gets a certain percentage of that, and everyone sort of wins in this situation, and the art consumer gets exclusive access to these digital works. And so there's 12 new works every year. Every month is a new one. And so I think it costs like $30 a month or for a whole year, and you get access to these exclusive artworks, digital artworks. So I think as a model of sort of dissemination and sort of how organizations and magazines and sort of the reciprocity between the arts and sort of the public and the institution. I think this is a really interesting model, and I think that's something worthwhile to look into if you're interested in sort of this model of sort of dissemination. So I just wanted to bring that up because I think I'm really impressed with what they're doing. So. I think we're pretty much at the time limit here, so if there's any questions. Sorry, I was gonna actually say, and I told her that I was gonna take questions, but if anyone has any questions about things, I can answer those questions. Yes?
So the last work you're showing, is it just a flat image or the last one, the submission for the magazine, for the Decoy magazine? Oh,
so this one is it's an online, strictly online. It's a processing sketch. So
it's three-dimensional and you can move around it.
It's just like it's an ongoing generative sketch.
Yes.
But it's on.
So it moves on its own.
It moves on its own. It's generated and it sort of constantly renews itself. Yeah.
So the works they host has this type of nature, which is not just like a flat digital image. It's something else beside pixels happening in it.
Well, some of the works. So every month is a different one. So it's different ones. Some of them are using GIFs. Some of them are using just straight images that are created digitally. But yeah. It's up to the artist, I think.
Because with the sketch, we know that it's undownloadable, so a user can download it and then send it to others and share it for free. But with some of the stuff they put on, probably you can download.
Well, they have a policy of, because they want to honor the subscribers, they keep the exclusivity for a year, so I couldn't share the link. Or it's an honor system. I promise not to share the link. But after that, like almost all processing sketches, there's like this honor thing that you share. You can release it to the wild, and people will scavenge your code and see what you're doing. You know, so I think that's that open, democratic way of open processing is. You know, so I think it's an interesting. Yep. That's it. Wonderful. Thank you.